Thank you for listening to the Golden State Media Concepts basketball podcast, where we discuss all of the news in the world of basketball. My name is Ben Brown. I am riding solo today. I am tackling this one-on-one. Going to be talking in the first segment about the NBA, the games from last night, some of the top performers. James Harden with another big game, another 40-point triple-double. Didn't have the quadruple-double this game. Did not have the 10 turnovers. But we'll talk about that as well as the rest of the scores in the NBA and some of the matchups to look forward to tonight, one of them being the Knicks and the Sixers, the return of Derrick Rose after his AWOL absence this weekend, and Kristaps Porzingis versus Joel Embiid, definitely something to look forward to tonight. So we'll talk about some of the box scores here in the first segment of the show. Second, we're going to be talking about college basketball from last night. The new number one Baylor Bears, not going to be there for long after they did lose last night to West Virginia, as well as on the women's side, the other number one having pretty good of a run. They've won 90 consecutive games in a row, which is tied with their own streak for longest in Division I history. They will be going for number 91 on Saturday against SMU. Just talk a little bit about UConn as well as some other things in college basketball. And to end the show, we're going to be talking about DeMarcus Cousins, reportedly setting to cash out in a new contract this offseason. LeBron James not very happy with the officials. And Grayson Allen, did he have another on-the-court incident, this time pushing an FSU coach? So we'll talk about that and more in the third segment. But first, we'll start off talking about the games within last night in the National Basketball Association. The Washington Wizards pick up a 101-99 victory over the Chicago Bulls. John Wall, 26 points, 14 assists, and 6 boards for the point guard from Kentucky. Denzel Valentine leads the Bulls, 19 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists. Washington now 19-8, 15-6 at home. So they're doing really well at home, but not too good on the road. Only 4 road wins as opposed to 12 losses. So if Washington wants to turn it around, replicate some of this or some of their success they had in the postseason a couple of years ago, they're going to have to find a way to win on the road, which is something they're not doing this year. The Bulls now 19-20. 7-12 on the road. They're kind of just a mess right now. Rajon Rondo is back in the lineup after his benching, but the whole organization just kind of topsy-turmoil right now. The Raptors pick up a 114-106 victory over the Boston Celtics. DeMar DeRozan had 41 points, 13 rebounds, and a couple of steals. Isaiah Thomas led the way for Boston, 27 points, 7 assists, and 1 rebound. The Raptors now 25-13. The Celtics 23-15. So probably the second and third best teams in the Eastern Conference. Would be a nice little Eastern Conference semifinal matchup in the postseason if it comes that way. Really a close game, only 8-point victory here for Toronto. So big fourth quarter. They were down by 4 going into the fourth quarter, and then they outscored Boston by 12 to win by 8. So nice little performance by DeMar DeRozan and the Raptors. The Atlanta Hawks pick up a 117-97 victory over the Brooklyn Nets. Dennis Schroeder with 19 points, 10 assists, and 1 rebound. Brook Lopez led the way for the Nets. 20 points, a couple of boards, and 2 assists. The Hawks now 22-16, playing really well on a 5-game win streak, and the Nets just one of the worst teams in the league, 8-29 now. The Rockets, as I mentioned, James Harden, another huge night, a 40-point triple-double yet again, 40 points, 15 rebounds, and 10 assists. He's just absolutely on fire this year. They win 121-114 over the Hornets. Kemba Walker led the way for the Hornets, 25 points, 10 assists, and 6 boards. The Rockets now 31-9, one of the best teams in the Western Conference, always entertaining to watch. It's going to be fun to see how they do the rest of the year. The Bucks, without Giannis Antetokounmpo, who is still sick, he missed the game with an illness, they defeat the Spurs 109-107. Michael Beasley, yes, Michael Beasley, leads the way for Milwaukee, 28 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists. Kawhi Leonard for the Spurs had 30 points, 7 rebounds, and a couple assists himself. The Spurs now 30-8, so still one of the top teams in the Western Conference. But the Bucks pick up a huge win on the road in San Antonio. They're 19-18. They do it without their best player as well. Really, really surprising result there. The Utah Jazz topped the Cleveland Cavaliers 100-92. LeBron James had 29 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. Gordon Hayward led the way for the Jazz, 28 points, 9 rebounds, a couple assists. LeBron James not too happy after the game, questioning some of the officials. We'll talk about that in the third segment. Is LeBron James getting treated poorly by the referees? The Trailblazers pick up a commanding 108-87 victory over the Los Angeles Lakers. CJ McCollum had 25 points, 4 assists, and 1 rebound for the Blazers. Luol Deng led the way for the Lakers, 14 points, 6 rebounds, and 1 steal. The Blazers 17-23 now, just not really having the same success they had last year when they beat the Clippers in the first round of the playoffs. The Lakers doing well under Luke Walton, 15-27, really trying to rebuild that franchise. The Golden State Warriors pick up a 107-95 victory over the Miami Heat. Steph Curry had 24 points, 9 assists, and 8 boards, so he almost had a triple-double himself. Hassan Whiteside, though, big stand-up performer for Miami, 28 points to go along with 20 rebounds for the big man. He's really evolving into one of the best big men in the league. Really, really impressed with Hassan Whiteside. Although they do lose the game, the Warriors, one of the best teams in the league, arguably the best team in the league, 33-6. The Heat, 11-29. Just not really a good team. And then last night, the Sacramento Kings, 194 victory over the Detroit Pistons. DeMarcus Cousins had 24 points, 13 rebounds, and 6 assists. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope led the way for Detroit. He had 21 points, 5 rebounds, and a couple assists himself. We'll talk about DeMarcus Cousins in the third segment, set to cash out on a huge contract extension over the summer, if it's a good move or a bad move for the Kings. All right, so we'll take our first break of the show. After the break, we'll be talking about the news within college basketball. Baylor goes down after they just become the number 1 team in the nation, and the UConn women continue to impress, 90 wins in a row. We'll talk about that and more after the break at the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back into the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. Before we talk about the news within college basketball, really quickly, tonight, the NBA, there are 6 games on schedule. The Knicks will be battling the 76ers, as I mentioned. Matchup between Joel Embiid and Kristaps Porzingis, 2 of the best young big men in the NBA. Joel Embiid is technically a rookie, although he has been in the league 3 years now because he's just been battling injuries. And then Kristaps Porzingis, a breakout year last year, and then this year having a good season as well. So it'll be interesting to see how these two match up, because I really do feel like, apart from maybe Anthony Davis and DeMarcus Cousins, these two are the next sort of wave of big men to come in the NBA that are really going to be breakout stars, probably going to be all-stars within a couple of years. So it's going to be interesting to see how these two battle back and forth all game long, their first matchup this season. And then we have the return of Derrick Rose after he went AWOL. Family issue. I understand you have family issues. Things happen, or family emergencies happen. But you can't just go into your employer and literally say nothing until the start of the game. You have to go in there, hey, I have a family issue. I have an emergency. I have to go back to Chicago. Something happened. I really don't want to get into the details. I'll be back on Tuesday. I'll be back on Wednesday for the next game. You can't just say nothing. Derrick Rose, we've known over the last couple of years, saying some things that people aren't necessarily agreeing with, obviously deciding to sit out so he can be able to watch and see his kids graduate high school and everything like that, missing all those games with the knee injuries and the meniscus and the legs and everything. So Derrick Rose, just another incident to try and sort of get people unhappy with him, and I guess it's really something that I'm not happy with as well. You can't just not say anything to your employer. Things happen. Just let people know the situation. The Knicks will be okay with it. They find him. They're not going to suspend him, which, I mean, I guess you don't need to suspend him. You need to fine him for sort of doing this, but just say something, man. Like, don't say nothing. All right, some of the other games on the schedule for tonight in the NBA. The Grizzlies will battle the Thunder. Russell Westbrook still averaging a triple-double, just barely, 31 points, 10.6 rebounds, and 10.4 assists. The Houston Rockets and James Harden look to stay hot in a very cold place, which is the Minnesota Timberwolves. Timberwolves not doing too well right now at 12-26. The Wizards will be battling the Celtics, a couple of teams that played last night. The Wizards with the win, obviously the Celtics not. The Magic will battle the Clippers out in LA at the Staples Center. And then the Cavaliers and LeBron James will be on the road to take on the Portland Trail Blazers. So now we'll look at some of the games in the college basketball realm that happened last night. I mentioned we had a new number one, and that was Baylor. Well, it's not going to be number one for long because they go on the road and they lose by 21 to West Virginia, who are number 10. So West Virginia, a really good team. They win 89-68 over Baylor. Nathan Adrian for West Virginia had 22 points and 6 rebounds to lead the Mountaineers and Bob Huggins over Baylor. This is a game, I mean, Baylor was ranked number one, but they were an underdog on the road to West Virginia. They were technically favored to lose this game. So although Baylor has been a very, very good team this year, they're only number one in my eyes because they haven't lost. This is only their first loss of the season. Still a very good team in the Big 12 and can definitely make some noise. Have to see what happens. So Joe Lual-Acual Jr. led the way for Baylor. He had 10 points and 12 rebounds. Number 2, Kansas was also in action. So if they keep winning, they're technically scheduled to be the new number one. They've only lost one game this year. They're 15-1. They win 81-70 over Oklahoma. Frank Mason III had 28 points, 5 assists, and 3 boards to lead the way for the Jayhawks. Number 3, Villanova with a very convincing victory, 79-54 over number 15, Xavier, out in the Big East. Villanova still an absolute dark horse to win the title like they did last year. Josh Hart led the way for the Wildcats, 20 points, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists. Number 6, Kentucky was on the road to take on Vanderbilt. Always a very tough place to play out in Tennessee at Vanderbilt because the way the floor is shaped, you have the coaches kind of on the sidelines, on the baselines, so they could be shouting at their team from far away or really up close. Isaiah Briscoe led the way for Kentucky, 27 points, 7 rebounds, and 5 assists. Vanderbilt just come up short. A good second half. They were fighting the whole way, but Kentucky just did enough late to win the game. Number 9, Florida State with a very convincing victory at home over number 7, Duke, 88-72. The Seminoles, of course, win. Duke not having Mike Krzyzewski now due to health issues. He's out. Luke Kennard led the way for the Blue Devils. He had 23 points, 3 rebounds, and a couple assists. And Xavier Rathan-May for Florida State had 21 points, 3 assists, and a couple of rebounds. In the next segment, we'll be talking about this game more because, in particular, we'll be talking about Grayson Allen. Grayson Allen, another on-the-court incident that has people questioning just how dirty of a player he is and if Duke should do something about stepping in and intervening with this guy, Grayson Allen, who just continues to have incidents that question just how dirty he is. Number 23, Florida win on the road against Alabama. They win 80-67. Casey Hill led the way for Florida. He had 13 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists. Braxton Key, a very nice game for Florida. Oh, no, I'm sorry, Alabama. He had 24 points, 5 rebounds, and 1 assist. And then number 25, Kansas State loses on the road, a narrow game to Texas Tech, 66-65. Camus Stokes for Kansas State had 17 points and 5 assists. And then Keenan Evans for Texas Tech, the guard, had a very nice game. He had 18 points, 2 rebounds, and 1 assist. And then that takes me to talk about women's basketball really quickly. So last night, UConn matched their own winning streak with 90 wins in a row. They'll be going for win number 91 on Saturday against SMU, as I mentioned. The story last night was about just how dominant they were as a team. UConn, obviously number 1 in the nation, unbeaten, 90 wins in a row, dating back to the last couple of years now. They played number 20, South Florida. South Florida is ranked number 20 in the nation. They're second in the AAC conference, probably best team-wise. Really, really good, solid team is South Florida. Well, UConn goes on to win 102-37. 102-37. They win by 65 points against a team that was ranked 20th in the nation and is second within their own conference as far as talent goes. South Florida only had 1 loss coming into the game. UConn wins by 65 points. They're going for win number 91 against SMU on Saturday. SMU is 10-5 overall. There's absolutely no way they lose this game. UConn is just on a roll. They're going to break their own record for most consecutive wins in a row. They already beat Notre Dame, which is probably the second best team in the nation this year. Gino Auriemma has got to have the easiest job in all of sports. Seriously, I realize he had to build this UConn team, and he's had a ton of success. He's a great coach. He's 11-0 in national title games. But, I mean, look at last night. Against a good team in South Florida, they were up 30-6 at the end of the first quarter. They were by 24 already. The game was over before it even started. Gino Auriemma has got to have the easiest job in all of sports. Every year, he can just go to the top recruit in the nation, top 5 players in the nation. He can go there, open up this briefcase that has all 11 championship rings now. He can go to that girl and he can say, you see all 11 of these rings? You see how we've won 90 games in a row twice now? Do you want to win 4 national titles? Do you want to not lose a game in college? Just go ahead and sign your name on that X right there, on the dotted line. Sign your name right there, and we'll make sure it happens. He's got to have the easiest. He probably gets bored. Like, he's up 30-6 at the end of the first quarter. Like, what does he tell his team? Well, you know, South Florida is a good team. They can really come back. You know, we have to keep our foot on the pedal here. He's got to have the easiest job in all of sports. Seriously, like, this guy is absolutely incredible. In women's sports, what I've noticed, more so than really any other sport in my eyes, in women's sports, it seems like talent always prevails. In men's basketball, you see upsets all the time. You see teams that are from the mid-majors make deep runs in the NCAA tournament. We've seen We've seen VCU make runs into the Final Four when they were an 11 seed. Butler, back-to-back years, were an 8 seed and a 9 seed playing for the national title. You see these mid-majors make runs. You see these powerhouse teams get upset. Shooter or a player gets hot and kind of dominates a game from the other team. In women's sports in particular, you absolutely never see this. The good teams are really, really good. And the bad teams are really, really bad. In women's sports, there will be like 3 or 4 really, really good teams. And then there's UConn. And then there's everyone else. It's really that simple. And there's never any upsets. Like 90 wins in a row, that will never happen in any men's sport. Because sometimes you have crazy things happen. In the women's game, the talent always prevails over the others. And that's not a knock on women's sports, but this happens in all women's sports, really. Like the United States and Germany and soccer really dominate pretty much everyone, and they always blow everyone out. In the men's game, it's not really like that. You could have a lot more talent on one side than another, but the result doesn't always get so outstretched like that one. But in women's sports, it just does. I mean, UConn, they win by 65 points against a team that's the 20th in the nation. That's absolutely insane. You wouldn't see any men's team win by 65 points in general. You know what I mean? No matter who they're playing. The number 1 team, Baylor, Kansas, Villanova, Kentucky, whoever you think is the best team, playing probably the worst team in all of college basketball, I doubt they'd win by 65 points. Just these crazy things happen like that. It's absolutely absurd. Congrats to UConn, as I said, going for win number 91 on Saturday against SMU. There's literally no way they don't do it. They're just absolutely incredible, and I think Gino Auriemma is definitely on the right path to win his 12th national title. He's unbeaten in national title games. Think about who he's had to beat. He's had to beat Pat Summitt in some of those, who's an absolute legend, the late, great Pat Summitt. Notre Dame has been pretty good recently. You have Baylor with Brittany Griner in there last few years. I mean, and he's topped all of them. He's done it all. And it's because his talent is just so much better than every other team, even these top teams in the nation. It's incredible. But anyways, that will lead me into my second break, our last break of the show. After the break, we're just going to talk some news within basketball. We have DeMarcus Cousins set to cash out with a new contract, Grayson Allen doing some more on-the-court incidents, and LeBron James arguing about getting fouled too much. We'll talk about that after the break at the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA, from the UFC to extreme cage fighting. They got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
So Paulina and I on Monday talked about DeMarcus Cousins and Draymond Green calling him the best big man in the game. We both agree talent-wise that DeMarcus Cousins is the best big man in the game, but given his on-the-court incidents with officials, some of his tirades, that he needs to kind of hold it in a little bit, and he's not someone that you want to build your franchise around because he doesn't simply make anyone around him better. He's not really a cornerstone of your franchise. He's more of a very good complementary piece in my eyes because he's not really a leader. He's not someone that leads by example. But anyways, the Kings are going to reportedly pay him like someone who will be leading by example and being their leader. According to James Ham of CSN California, the Kings are estimated to offer DeMarcus Cousins a contract extension this offseason that is estimated at roughly $207 million, which would keep him obviously with the Kings long term. There's nothing about a sort of year length on here, but for $207 million, I would have to estimate it's probably a 5 to 6 year deal. That's really kind of the max that players are really going for now. So if the Kings give DeMarcus Cousins a $207 million deal, probably for the next 5 to 6 years, you can forget about a couple of things. You can forget about trading him, because in the NBA, if you're going to trade players, you have to really match salaries. You have to match about 90% of the salary. So if you're going to trade DeMarcus Cousins, who's probably going to be making $35, $40 million a year because of the new CBA, you're going to have to trade with a team that will probably have to offer at least a couple, maybe 2-3 guys or a pick that's probably valued at like $35 million. So you're going to have to trade a lot to get DeMarcus Cousins, who's kind of been on the trade block recently. Boston might be interested. They have a ton of young assets there. The Kings looks like they're going to be keeping DeMarcus Cousins if they give him this deal. The Kings absolutely, in my eyes, need to do this deal because if you don't have DeMarcus Cousins, you don't really have much. You look at the Kings season this year, although they are under 500, they're having a pretty good year. The Kings right now are in playoff contention. The Kings right now are the number 9 seed at 16-22. They're just percentage points behind the Portland Trailblazers right now for that number 8 seed in the Western Conference, a spot the Kings have not been in 12 years because they've been in the lottery for 12 straight years. They haven't even been in the playoffs for 12 years now. Although the number 8 seed right now, you're looking at literally getting swept by the Golden State Warriors. You're still in the playoffs, which I guess is an improvement from last year. The Kings at 16-22, not a great record, but they're still improving out of last year's record under Coach Dave Yeager this year. So signing DeMarcus Cousins to a $207 million deal is obviously a great thing because of how good of a player he is. We all know how good DeMarcus Cousins is. It's just his on-the-court sort of tirades, his sort of views against officials, and how he complains a lot, leads the league in technical fouls. He's not going to wrap it up. He would have done it by now. He's been in the league a handful of years already, and he's still not improving at all. So you know going into that, that's what you're going to get. But the Kings absolutely have to make this move because aside from DeMarcus Cousins, they don't have anyone. Rudy Gay's okay. Darren Collison and Ty Lawson are okay. But apart from there, they don't have anyone. The Kings aren't going to sign any big-name free agents. The biggest free agent they signed this offseason was Aaron Aflalo. Not a bad player, good three-point shooter, but he's their sixth man right now. He's not even starting. So you're not going to go out and sign the big-name free agent. You're not going to have a lot of money because you're giving it all to DeMarcus Cousins. But it's a move they absolutely have to make because without DeMarcus Cousins, they're probably the worst team in the NBA. So you have to go out there and give him everything you can to keep him there. The only way the Kings can sort of improve and become a threat again like they were in the early 2000s in my eyes, they have to strike gold, just like the Golden State Warriors did, just like the Oklahoma City Thunder did. They've been in the lottery for 12 years now. Their best pick has been DeMarcus Cousins. Tyreek Evans was okay. Isaiah Thomas, who they picked in literally the last pick of the draft that year, he's not a part of their team anymore. But they have to strike gold just like the Warriors and the Thunder did. They have to get that player in the draft that turns into a superstar and an all-star, like Klay Thompson did, like Steph Curry did, like Draymond Green did. And then once you become a good team, you're going to be able to sign some of those veteran free agents and some of those big names that are maybe chasing a championship if your talent is championship worthy. You look at the Thunder, drafted Kevin Durant, drafted Russell Westbrook, drafted James Harden, drafted even Steven Adams now, who's not a bad player. Although Harden and Durant are no longer with the team, the Thunder were in the finals one year. Last year they should have probably went in the finals. They blew a 3-1 lead to the Warriors. If they're in the finals, maybe Kevin Durant doesn't leave that team. So the Kings have to replicate the success of those two teams I'm using as examples if they really want to compete. They already have a superstar in Cousins. If you can strike gold in the draft, get some players around him, maybe you have something going there. Although the Kings have not done that for 12 years, so their reputation is not really going in the right direction. They are under some new owner management. Vlade Divac as a general manager. He's still kind of fresh in there, so you have to give him a little bit of time, although some people have not necessarily been happy with what he's been doing so far. You have to give him a little bit of time to see if he knows what he's doing or not. So DeMarcus Cousins set to cash out reportedly in the offseason for $207 million. Kind of interesting there. All right, that takes me in to talk about LeBron James now. So LeBron James, after their loss last night, as I mentioned, not really happy about some of the officiating in the game. So LeBron James was assessed a technical foul last night for arguing, which is only his second of the year this year. So he's not a guy who gets a lot of technical fouls. A guy who definitely is a star, the best player in the league, gets some star treatment, but he's not really happy with how he's been officiated lately. So he said after the game, someone asked him if sort of the result of the technical foul was because of frustration with how he's been officiated lately. And he says, quote, it is. But I know what the main thing is. The main thing is to win. But yeah, it is. So LeBron James finished the game last night only taking 7 free throws, which is on his average this year of 7.1 attempts. So LeBron James, a guy of his stature, a guy who will definitely attack the paint, is only averaging 7 free throws a game. So technically 7, if it's not a made basket, you're looking at really 3 trips to the line where he's shooting 2, 1 trip to the line where he's shooting 1. So call it like 3.5, 4 trips to the line per game. For a guy like LeBron James, that's definitely a little low. Richard Jefferson spoke up after the Phoenix game on James' behalf. He said, quote, this is another night where he's getting to the basket and he's only getting 6 free throws, 8 free throws. For a guy that spends as much time in the paint and drives as aggressive as he is, for him to be in the bottom 15 in the league in free throw attempts, given that he's the best player on the planet and a 4-time MVP, is definitely disappointing. You can tell the referees have a very difficult job refereeing him, and to his credit, he keeps his cool for the most part. But as his teammate, it is tough to watch him go, and get no calls. The referee have a very difficult job because he's a unique player. So I think what Jefferson said is actually pretty right. The referees do have a tough job with LeBron James because of how big, strong, and fast he is. You can arguably call a foul on every trip down the court, in the paint especially. When guys are attacking the basket, especially with that freight train coming at you like LeBron James is, for me personally, I would just get out of the way of the guy. But of course you're going to stand there and you're going to probably foul him. Try and do everything you can to not get posterized, not get posterized, and not allow the guy to just have an easy 2 points. So you're going to try and foul him. And for an official to go down to the court and call a foul literally every single time would get a little old, and you'd have sort of the same thing LeBron James is saying here, but on the other side, you'd have people saying like, oh, all he does is go to the free throw line. They're calling too many fouls. They're calling literally everything on him. So I get both sides of the sort of the argument here. But for me, LeBron James only averaging 7 free throws a game, that seems a little low. I could say if he's averaging 10, and within the past week he's only been averaging 6, maybe having a little bit of a gripe, just kind of a bad week, getting fouled or not. but only 7 free throws. He's averaging 3.5 times down the court an entire game going to the free throw line. That just seems a little low to me. We'll have to see if, since LeBron has come up and spoken out about this, if something's going to change or not. For me personally, though, LeBron, you don't have really much to worry about. You're still, in my eyes, the favorite to win the title. I will still pick you right now over the Warriors, and I think you just need to keep playing. You're going to be the number 1 seed in the East, and just keep your cool. Don't really worry, and he has. He's only gotten his 2nd technical foul, which was last night of the entire season, which some guys get 2 technical fouls in a game, a la DeMarcus Cousins. But anyways, and then real quick before we end the episode, I got to talk about Grayson Allen yet again. So Grayson Allen, Pauline and I talked about him on Monday with his incident against Boston College this weekend. Did he trip the player or not? Not really sure. The ACC came out and said it was not conclusive, so they could not really decide anything. Well, last night against Florida State, a game which Duke lost on the road, Grayson Allen has yet another dirty play put against him. So Grayson Allen was attempting to save a ball going out of bounds right in front of the Florida State bench. He saves the ball. He kind of tips it back into the court. Obviously, he's going to crash into some of the players, the fans or whatever, and he has all of his momentum going against him. So he crashes in to Florida State assistant coach Dennis Gates. Grayson Allen, he kind of puts his hands on Gates. Obviously, his momentum's going that way. He's pushing forward. But it's not just there. He puts his hands on Gates, and there's clear evidence, if you watch the video, that there's clearly a shove there. He, Gates, a couple other guys also fall into the stands. Everyone gets back up. Everything's great. But we're talking today is Grayson Allen doing yet another dirty play. Pauline and I talked about it on Monday, so I don't want to go too far into depth. In this incident, it's another one of those issues where you can't tell if Grayson Allen purposely pushed Gates or not. There's no clear evidence because his momentum's going that way. He's falling out of bounds already. He did everything he can to save the ball. There's no way of knowing for sure or not if Allen clearly pushed Dennis Gates or not. But to me, I think this might be a little intentional. And given Grayson Allen's history, you cannot give him the benefit of the doubt. The 3 tripping incidents, was it a trip or not on Saturday? Now you have this going against him last night. He's the boy who cried wolf. Given his history, you cannot say, oh, it's okay, like, that was cool. Don't worry, everything's good. Get back on the court, son. Like, go out there and make a play. Given his sort of history, you have to say that this might be another dirty play against Grayson Allen. So Gates did come out and admit that Grayson Allen's push in his eyes was not a dirty play, and he was just trying to fight for the ball. It was purely a basketball play. But for me, it's not that easy. I think there might be a little bit to this here, and I think it might be another incident, another knock on Grayson Allen. Given his history, if he gets into the NBA and he does any of these on-the-court antics, I think it spells a recipe for disaster for Allen, because someone like DeMarcus Cousins, like Draymond Green, LeBron James, any of these bigger guys, if he tries to pull any of these stunts on those guys, he's going to get hit right in the face. And he's going to kind of suffer some consequences. In college, he's maybe getting away with a little more than probably someone else would. But I just think it's another incident where Grayson Allen, you can't give him the benefit of the doubt given his history. All right, guys, that's going to end the episode for today. I hope you enjoyed. Pauline will be back in tomorrow to update you on all things basketball. I mentioned some of the games we had tonight on schedule. In college basketball, the biggest game of the night is number 12 Butler taking on number 8 Creighton. A matchup between a couple of mid-majors. Should be really good. Number 12 overall against number 8 overall. Kind of good. UNC is on the road to face Wake Forest. Number 14 Louisville will take on Pittsburgh. And number 24 Minnesota will take on Michigan State, who, although are unranked, this is Tom Izzo we're talking about, and you can never count him out come tourney time. It seems like the Spartans always get hot near the end of the year and then make a good run in the NCAA tournament. Although last year they did lose when they were a number 2 seed, and I picked them to win it all, so what do I know? But anyways, those are some of the games on the college basketball schedule tonight. Pauline will update you on those as well as games in the NBA and all the news in the NBA and college basketball right here at the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. My name is Ben Brown. Thank you for listening, and we will see you guys next time.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.